So, standing on the top of that hill, Mount Zion, I could look out over the fields. And though my granddad wasn't a wheat farmer, when the grass grew long, because they didn't have tractors and stuff to cut that grass, you could stand there on a blowy day and you could watch the wind. You can't actually see the wind, but you can only tell the wind is real by what it does. And when Jesus said to the disciples, "What did you go out to see?" He told John's disciples, "Go and tell John what you see and what you hear." The reality of what Jesus does and who he is comes from what happens when he's there. You may not see him, though a number of people have, seen him. But you can sure tell by what happens with the wind. Now, when the wind blows across a field, it's like watching. It's really quite beautiful. You can see it, and like this, all the sheaves bow, and then sometimes it blows the other direction, and that's kind of cool. I've watched that in videos of crusades when God had just like mowed people down. It's cool to watch. You know, you're standing there on a platform or something, and you see God going like this. Nobody sees anything except everybody's going down like that. It's just like, hello. The funny thing is, a lot of the people that fall down don't even know God, and they may get up healed atheists. God doesn't care. He just loves people. If I was God, I'd require at least a 1-year discipleship training program, full baptism and tithing for them to even come into the door. God just loves people. He hates to see them screwed up, and he just does stuff. And though he has to hold back, you understand, him showing up is not really influence. Him showing up in front of you is not really like, let me make a suggestion, surrender to me. Him showing up is like, oh, shoot, and every idea you had blows out of your mind. So he has to hold back. He doesn't want you forced to love him. But you see that wind blowing, and that's supposed to be the characteristic of those who are born of the Holy Spirit. There is a flexibility and an unpredictability that comes when you give your life to God. And some of you are a bit scared of that because you have your life all mapped out, and it's really cool. I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I was 7 years old. I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to be a chemist. It sort of distilled out as time went on, and it became from just general scientist to chemist to research chemist to research chemist specializing in large molecules. It got more and more like that. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. My life was safe. My ambition was never travel and never meet anybody and be a nerd. Those were my ambitions in life. And the trouble with God is that he acts like he's ruler of the universe or something, and he just comes in and screws up your entire future. So if you come this morning, you don't know Jesus, and you have this idea that Jesus will somehow bless your life and make it exactly the way your movie says it should be, get another thought. I'm here today under protest. The wild thing about God is you don't always have to like it, but if you agree with him, it'll be wonderful. It just won't seem so at the meantime. When your life is going down like water out of a bath when you pull the plug, it will not seem cool. But what that bath fills up with afterwards is worth everything. And so there is a flexibility that comes to those born of the Spirit. But when you don't have him, the wind that drives you is not the direction of the one who made the universe. The wind that drives you is what the crowd around you thinks is right. Have you ever thought how terrifying it is of how we make up laws? We vote. How many of you think that's how we make? I think. And if 59% of the people agree with that, it becomes law. That is one scary way Imagine if gravity was like that. We decided today, let's vote whether gravity should pull you up or down. What kind of church would we have if gravity was as unpredictable as some Christians are? You'd have to come in here with magnetic boots, have seat belts, fasten your seat belts. When you walked out to your car, you'd have to pull yourself along, and then your car would have to be magnetized too, which would be scary. And then if some idiot really prayed, well, you could accelerate at 32 foot a second and leave the planet. Bruce Almighty. It's not easy being God, you know. Running a world isn't as fun as you think it is. But all of us have tried to be God at one time or another. Have we not? When the wind that blows over your life is not Him, this is what happens to your life. The crowd goes, this is what we think. And you go, and then it goes, and you go. And it is very hard to have any real excitement in your life when your life looks like this. Jellyfish do that too. They just, where the tide comes in, you see them dead all over the place. No wonder some of them have to sting you to know that they're there, because otherwise... Watch a salmon. Most anointed fish. You don't eat jellyfish. You just leave them to die. Salmons, here's the stream, they go... You know that sucker is alive. The reed blown by the wind describes a huge chunk of Western culture. No convictions, nothing real in their life, nothing stable and sure and unchanging. Everything is at the whim of the sociological wind. Whatever blows, that's what you do. Whatever is in, it's really hard staying up with that wind too. You just get a car and another model comes out the next week. Computers are ridiculous. It's outdated by the time you've opened the box. Shoot, it's another one. I was flying on a plane down here, and there was a Japanese businessman. He looked beautiful. Like I don't look like this. I only put on ties because it's harvest rock. Just to rebel, you know. And he was beautifully dressed, three-piece suit. He pulled out this, not just a laptop computer, but a right screen computer, you know, where you write on the screen, and he's doing all kinds of cool things. I pulled my 80-pound computer out from under the thing. He had his like Bose noise cancelling headphone. I was going to ask him some questions, but I knew I was noise to be cancelled. And he was doing all these cool things. Pulled out his little wireless Bluetooth palm. Sad, isn't it? I lived in Hollywood, Burbank. It's not far from here. In the early days when smog controls went on, that's when parents used to say to their children, why don't you get some fresh air and play inside today? And when the birds woke up in the morning going... I've never forgotten, I've mentioned this before in Harvest Rock here, but I lived right opposite Burbank High School in a church there. In the mornings, they look out and there were these little... The school had a motto. It was, I guess it was a motto, pride. I thought it was like sin of the week. And they'd like put lust, murder, addiction and other ones up. But it was apparently the motto of the school. But just down from the high school was a middle school, a junior high school. And at that time, Madonna, who is queen of the sociological wind, she had her hair up like Madge Simpson on You're Not Purple, and little rags tied in the hair, and these ridiculous stiletto stack heels that if you trip and fall you will die. They're just like very high things. And I looked out one morning, and here's America where you can dress any way you want to, And there were all these little middle school girls in pairs carrying their heavy books with them. And every single one, I kid you not, every single one had her hair up like this, little rags tied in it, and these ridiculous stiletto heels. There's nothing weirder than a skinny 11-year-old legs on stiletto heels. It's the funniest looking thing, you know. And I thought as I watched these wannabes after wannabes pass in front of my astonished gaze, why are these little girls in a country like America, you had all these choices, dressed exactly alike? And the answer is profound. Because they want to be different. You've got to wear those shoes or you're not cool. So you've got to buy this thing or you're not in. What did you go out in the wilderness to see, Jesus said? A reed shaken by the wind. See? A huge chunk of our culture needs a desperate infusion of things that do not change. And though when you look at it, it may seem like arrogance to say there are some things that are true and things that aren't true, somebody's got to say it. And God said it a long time ago. He said it in His book, and He said it in His Son, and He said it when He made the world. And those written into the rules of reality around us are constant reminders that there are some things that don't change, because He makes His sun to rise on the evil and the good alike, and He sends His rain on the just and the unjust alike. And those constant descriptions of reality around us, which we call laws of science, are reminders that there are some things that do not change. And if you make up your own rules, what kind of world is that? It's rollerball is what it is. Where every game you have, they keep taking the rules away until finally there's no rules. And what do you call a culture where there aren't rules or people make up their own rules? You call it insanity. When very smart people come up with the philosophy that generates that idea, they usually go crazy straight away because they're smart. But dumber people who follow the same philosophy, it takes them sometimes 20 years to catch up with that. Then they all go crazy together. Welcome to the United States in 2003. God does have a flexibility that comes from Him, unpredictability that is wonderful. And if you think Jesus came to bring you safety and security, get another thought. He will take you and stretch you beyond what you dreamed. But He is not a person driven by anything. He is the absolute out of which everything else comes. And if you want, I remember some kid years ago, there was a youth pastors conference, and they were talking for about a half hour about what kids most need. And in their midst was a high school kid. He was a spy. He sneaked in to see what it was all about. And he stood up in the middle of that conference. He said, "You've been talking about what we need. I'll tell you what I need. I want some absolutes. I want some real rights and some real wrongs. I want a wall to lean on, and I don't want it to move." Do you remember those of you teachers in California? They passed no values. You're not allowed to teach values. You can't insert any kind of value teaching into your curriculums. It was a brilliant idea. Until kids started shooting the teachers. They go, "That's not such a good idea. We don't like that idea. Now you must teach values of some sort." You can make them up, but still teach those values. And how about this one? A man dressed in soft clothes. Is that what you went out to see? I don't know what John wore. The Bible tells us he wore a camel skin. I don't know. I don't think that was like from Marks and Schaefer and Hart and stuff. I did meet a man with a leopard skin suit when I was in Greenwich Village in the 60s. He had like ears and tail. That was a leopard skin suit. So John the Baptist would probably never make it to Q magazine. But I bet there were a lot of people that said, "Hey, have you seen this guy John? He's so cool, man. He's got like these humps and things. And like he eats crunchy insects. You have got to see this. This is a phenomenon you won't believe." We have had for a long time people who think the only thing that is real and the only thing worth aiming for is stuff, good stuff. So if you've got the right clothes, the right car, the right house, the right job, the right income, you've got it made. I was looking at a Viper yesterday. It seems like that when valets park their cars outside the houses, they never park sort of like the truck there. They always wait till a Rolls has come or something. And there was a red Viper, very scary-looking car, Viper. Paul ran into a Viper and he shook it off into the fire. And somebody was like standing in his picture taken beside this Viper. And I looked like that, it's all going to burn. When you were a little kid, did you like ice cream? Maybe you still do. I do. I could not understand my parents who had so much money didn't eat ice cream every day for like breakfast or lunch or supper. I thought, they've got this money. They could eat ice cream every day. How come they don't do that? Much nicer tasting the potatoes and stuff. I understand people who work in Baskin-Robbins now. But you see, the things you think are so important at one time in life, as time goes on, you find that all falls apart too. And I'm thinking of a man called Solomon who had the power and the ability to take what we think is important, power, wealth, status, experimentation with things. He had the power to do all of that stuff, and he took it to the max. And this is his conclusion, book of Ecclesiastes, that under the sun, if you have a world where God has been excluded from your life, no God in your marriage, no God in your family, no God in your studies, no God in your education, no God in your job, no God in your art or your media or culture, no God, if you just take that away from people, if you just simply have a culture under the sun where there is no heaven, no hell, no anything, just you and your mastery of stuff, here's what Solomon's description is. Vanity. I used to think vanity meant, like you are so vain, you probably think the song is about you. The fawns and stuff like that. The word vanity doesn't just mean that. Do any of you remember the children's book and movie called The Never-Ending Story? Remember that? What is the scariest thing in that story? What was it? That like wolf dog? Was that the scariest thing? What is the big thing that made the antagonist in this wonderful children's book? What is the really big, scary thing? The big nothing. What is the nothing? It's not even the Borg that absorbs you. It is nothing. It's like a black hole with no passage to another world. Nothing simply gobbles up everything you are. And what God says is this: you give yourself to something and try to make that the thing. When it's not rooted in the reality of who I am, what you come up with is a black hole. You will not be super stud, you will be not super cool, you will simply be nothing. In the end of your life, you look back on everything you've accomplished, and the answer will be nothing. And then the last thing he said, did you go out to see a prophet? Some people get sick of the whatever. And then they get sick of just looking for the stuff. That doesn't seem to make it either. Now we have a culture that's open to the spiritual world. And this culture probably more than any others in 30 years. And very, very spiritually literate. People no longer don't believe in God or don't believe in the devil or don't believe in angels and don't believe in demons. You believe in everything now. We believe in touched by an angel and scared by a demon and Buffy and Pokemon and crossing over with John Edwards and we believe in all kinds of stuff. Before we didn't believe in anything. Now we believe in everything and anything. And Jesus, looking at the people who came out to see John the Baptist, said, "Is this what you came to see?" Because none of those things, though they are clothes important? Are they important? Not many naked people here. Clothes are good. I like clothes. I like it better than being in public without clothes. Clothes are good. It's nice to have a car. If I'd have run here, I'd still be running. Those are good things. God is not against stuff. God is not against flexibility. And He's certainly not against the spiritual world. We have a culture here that has absolutely not just a heart after the prophetic, but no idea what that prophetic looks like. And so He says, I say to you more than a prophet. There's a lot of prophets going to be rising today because the sign of the last days is not just earthquakes or diverse diseases or wars or all of these things which are listed there in this same book we're looking at, Book of Matthew. The sign of the last days, according to the Scriptures, is the sign of the fig tree. And when I was growing up, we had a fig tree in our backyard. It was a huge fig tree, very large thing. Some of you have seen figs. They look like tiny little dried up things in a box about this big. Our fig tree put out figs like this. You could put 6 or 8 of them would fill a shoebox. That's how big these big, huge purple figs. The fig tree had been there forever. And my job was to chase away the birds that picked holes in these figs. And then the wasps got inside them and stuff. I had to sit up there in a tree. That's why I became weird. And summertime and drive all these birds away, because that was our pocket money for the summer. We didn't have lemonade stands. Nobody cared a rip about lemonade in Mike Street, but figs. But whatever we couldn't sell, we had to eat. I like fig jam, fig chutney, fig soup, I hate figs! Sorry, that's Freudian slip. So I really loved it when Jesus was walking along. And he came to this fig tree. He went up expecting to find some fruit on it. There was nothing on it. He said, die! And it died. The following day, it came back and the disciples said, whoa, that fig tree, you could... That frightened the disciples because Jesus is supposed to walk like a Monty Python movie and, you know, like this and not say stuff like die to trees. I said, Master, the tree you cursed is dead. You think it's any coincidence? Straight after he cursed that fig tree, what he did next? See, I didn't realize what the fig is. 3 great trees in the Bible that have consistent metaphor right through. as Arthur C. Custon points out. The vine, which is a symbol of the political or secular history of a nation. The way it grows, it's territorial, has to be constantly cut back and pruned, function of government. 2, the olive tree, which is a wonderful symbol of the spiritual history of a nation. Olive lives a long, long time. They think there are olive trees that are alive when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane. Still alive today. Like the redwoods, they live a long, long time and they're fruitful right up to the time of their death. The olive tree gives forth not only the olive fruit, but the oil, which is light, and it's just a wonderful metaphor. Even the leaves, there's a substance called oleuropein, which is a very powerful natural antibiotic, like the leaves, the healing for nations. But I never knew what the fig tree was. That if the vine is a symbol of the political history of a nation, and it's secular, if you like, it's wars, it's kings and this stuff, and the olive is the symbol of the spiritual history of a nation, the fig tree is a symbol of the religious history of a nation, which is not the same as the spiritual. And straight after Jesus cursed that fig tree, I remember reading that and thinking this. The Bible says that he came and the tree had its leaves out and he expected to find fruit. The thing that's different about the fig tree from every other tree is that if you go out there in spring, there's little green buds all over the tree, but they're not leaves. They're figs. The fig tree is a very rare tree. Its fruit appears before the leaves. So when the leaves come out, the figs then are about ready to ripen. And so when Jesus walks to this fig tree, well, he designed it as fruit first, leaves later. Fruit first, trappings afterwards. There is a true religion undefiled in the Bible, to visit the widows, the orphans, take care of those that are hurting. That's a true religion. He came and there was just leaves, trappings, no fruit. And he said, die. He violated the way I made you, die. And then he goes straight into the temple and he cleans it out. Do you think there's a connection perhaps between those two things? So if you've come this morning here, you don't know the Lord, don't confuse these two things. This is not the same as that. And though from the surface they're just trees, John the Baptist, who did you go out in the wilderness to see? What is your picture today? Not only of what God's prophets look like, God's people look like, but ultimately of who Jesus really is. And I think one of the greatest things the church can do now is to take people back to the real thing. The way you find out what is fake is study the real. You don't need to spend a lot of time studying the fake, just like treasury agents don't need to spend a lot of time studying fake bills. They need to know what real bills look like backwards, forwards, and sideways, so when you throw a fake one down, they just look at it and go, that's fake. And one of the things God wants to do in churches across this country is make them real. So that when you walk in, you can sense what is real. And the thing God wants to make us this morning is real. Let's close in prayer. Time's gone.